Good afternoon, ethics students. I welcome you guys today on this beautiful Wednesday afternoon. It's a beautiful, sunny, and cold day. Uh, we were supposed to meet and have class on Monday, but unfortunately, because of MLK holiday, we did not. So I just wanted to share some important information for you this week. I did, if you see on the screen here, I did make a comment about your activities for the week, what you should be doing. Reading chapters 4 and 5, complete quiz 3, um, discussion 3, quiz 3. And some of you have not completed your quiz or your exams from last week. I know we still have some issues with textbooks, but I just want to encourage you guys to do that as soon as possible. Well, for this week, we're looking at chapters 4 and 5. Um, we talked about some things last week in chapters 1, 2, and 3. So in week 3, when I click the button here, I have some information on chapters 4 and 5. If you go down the screen, um, I want to go over the PowerPoint for chapter 4. I think it's very important because chapter 4 it's a very important chapter when it comes to reviewing your case study, deciding on what papers you're going to write for the class the next few weeks. So chapter 4 has to do with making ethical decisions. As we talk about morals and we talk about ethics from the textbook, we want to know, how do we make the right type of decisions? And basically, if you see in the first slide, says the Bible, ethical decision making. Unfortunately for Christians, the Bible does not always address ethical issues as clearly as like. Okay, so the Bible really doesn't give us a clear point of what ethical or how ethical are we supposed to be. But you see, the Bible gives us the foundation in the book of Proverbs, in the book of Exodus, the book of Deuteronomy, the book of Leviticus, the Sermon on the Mount in Matthew chapter 5 through 7. It gives us a view of ethics and how we're supposed to behave, in society, among our family, peers, and in Christians. When that is the case, Christians must look at biblical principles and virtues. That's what I'm talking about, these passages and books, okay? It's not always clear that virtuous prayer should be applied to the issue of what virtue prayer should be given. Now, one of the things that the Bible has done, it has not addressed all our ethical decisions that we're faced with today in the 21st century, 2020. There are some things that you really have to read the text, use some common sense, and be able, when you're trying to decide what things are right versus what is wrong in the 21st century. So we see in chapter 4, it gives us a model on how do we make these type of decisions. How do we choose, for example, when Adam and Eve, Eve presented the apple to Adam, and Adam ate the apple, okay? Because in a way, Adam then was only told not to eat, but there was no process on how to process making these type of decisions. So the first step when you're trying to make any type of ethical decisions, first of them all is to gather the facts. When I'm going to make a decision about financing or make a decision about buying a home or buying a car or having a kid, we gather facts. We got to know what are all the important informations that we need to know, okay? This is very important when it comes to whatever decisions. They have to do, for example, someone's about to abuse drugs, they have to know the consequences, okay? It looks good to abuse and take substance of any type of drug, but there's always going to be a consequence behind the action. Something is going to result from it. As I said in class the other day, many cigarette companies are now producing, products so people can quit smoking. But had they had presented the situations with smoking in the beginning, I bet you most of the people would not have become addicted to it. So what are the consequences of smoking? Cancer, throat cancer, all type of cancers, throat disease, and so forth. All other diseases in the body that can show up because of the smoking, And it's the same thing, like we see vaping. Many people are vaping now, think it's more safe and effective. But as we say in class, there are a lot of people who are getting sick and ill because of vaping. So there's always going to be a consequence for the actions that we take. So we gather the facts. When it comes to your case study, You got to gather the facts. You read the text, and then you gotta analyze what are the key things that the text is telling me. Okay, in order to make the right decision or analyze it. Two primary questions that need to be asked in order to make these: what do we know, and what do we need to know? So as I'm gathering my facts, what do we know right now? Okay. We know this, we know this, we know this. And what do we need to know? Well, that's why when you do research, there's always something you're studying. Okay, you're trying to find out, for example, if you're studying a biblical book, if you're in the New Testament, you have to write a research on one of the books in the New Testament. You want to study, for example, who are the writers? What do we know about the writers of those books? What do we know about the people who the book was written to? What do we know about Jesus' life? What was missing about Jesus' life? And one of those gospel books of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. So you gather facts. Class, the next thing you do is to determine the ethical issues involved. Okay? So even before you think about ethics, you want to gather the facts is step one. And step two, you look at the ethical issues. What are the issues involved here? Okay? For example, in Adam and Eve, God told Adam and Eve, don't eat that apple. But what ethical issues were there? One, God gave them boundaries. You can do this in the garden, but this right here, you're not supposed to touch it. Those were boundaries that God gave. So that was an ethical issue because they knew that God said, don't touch the apple, okay, or don't touch that tree, it's forbidden. What are the ethical issues there are? There are ethical issues when it comes to drug use, murder, sexual assault. Okay, these are all ethical issues that we're faced with every day. Okay, so you need to look at what ethical issues are in the passage. Okay, what ethical terms. When we talk about ethics last week, we were talking about some keywords where morals and ethics might relate more to certain cultures and people, or there are some people based on their backgrounds where what would be right for you and I, one in the United States, might be wrong for somebody else living in China. So what, for example, ethical issues? We're accustomed to greeting people here, giving a handshake or kiss on the cheek, whereas in some other countries, the ethical issue is thou shalt not embrace or kiss somebody on the cheek that way. Okay, I love when I study about Asia. Okay, Asia is not just one country, but it's made up of different countries in Asia. People from China have ethical issues that are different from Japan or Korea. Okay, all these groups of people have different views and ways of seeing things. Ethical dilemmas are produced when any given situation one has chosen two or more competing moral interests. Okay, so my moral interests will be different from somebody else's. Okay, someone might drink coffee. I'm drinking coffee right now. Someone is accustomed to drinking coffee every morning. Okay, where another group might say coffee is bad for you. Better drink tea. And in some cultures, people do drink tea in the morning. Okay. When thinking about a decision at hand, it's valuable to place it in the X and Y format. X, Y. X meaning this is the issue. Y meaning this is the consequence of what will occur if I do something. Okay. So the second thing is to look at the ethical issues that are faced when we're about to make certain decisions. The third step class requires you to determine what virtues or principles have bearing. Okay. Remember, virtues have to do with biblical. Okay. Biblical sources, what the Bible says about certain things. Remember, from there's ethics and there's virtues, biblical. Okay. If I was teaching this class as a regular ethics course, I would not have nothing to do with any biblical at all. We would just talk about ethics and those key words that you've seen in chapters 1, 2, and 3. But now, being a Christian ethics course, we have to look at the Christian views that affect us. For example, when it comes to Christian views, we believe that marriage is scarce between a man and a woman. Okay, so that being said, there are Christian views about this. We believe that as Christians, no, the bedroom is scarce and that it's a blessing for a husband and wife who are married to enter a bedroom. So those are Christian views. Okay. The purpose of the step is to help you think through what virtues and principles you think satisfy your decision. So in the third step, you're going to look at the Christian principles that you know of. As I said, Exodus, Deuteronomy, Leviticus, the Sermon on the Mount that Jesus preached on Matthew chapter 5 through 7. All those are Christian virtues. Jesus talked about love. And Jesus specifically said in the book of Matthew, love thy neighbor as thyself. So when Jesus was proclaiming that, he was saying, if you love me, Christ, if you love I, Christ, then you would be able to follow the key things that the Bible teaches us about. Okay? So the third step is to look at that. The fourth step here, the fourth step of the model is this alternative course of action to resolve. Now, every time you're about to make a decision, there's always going to be some pros and some cons into your decisions. Okay? And what this is step 4 is saying to look at what other issues, what other dilemmas, what other options you might have in making the decision that you're about to make. Okay? So, for example, when you're deciding to buy a car, one car costs $40,000, one costs $30,000, one costs $20,000. So you're going to look at all 3 different type of cars to see which one would be a better fit for you and your family. One of them might cost $40,000, might have better luxury options and stuff, but the monthly price tag might be a bit too much for your family. Whereas the car that costs $30,000 could be more equivalent to what you're getting for $40,000, and the one that's $20,000 might be a lower brand, but it might be more economical for you and your family to afford it. So you look at your other options to see what alternatives do you have. Same thing, buying a house. Okay, you're buying a house, you want to move in a Bel Air community compared to moving in Plantation or Sunrise or Miramar or Pompano. Each community brings with it a different price range, different schools, different opportunities for you. Okay, so when you're looking at the different options, you're looking at what A, B, and C has to offer. Okay, so this goes back to ethics. If I'm going to make this decision about something, I have to look at A, B, C. If I do A, this will happen. If I do B, this is what happens. If I do C, this is what will happen. So that's when it comes to making these ethical decisions. It's really thinking about it, because sometimes people really do not think about their actions. They don't think about the decisions that they're going to make on a daily basis. And this is why a lot of people get in trouble, my friends, because they never process and think. Something comes in their mind, you just move with the wind. Sometimes it's good, but sometimes that can be a dangerous way of doing things. Okay. So the step number 4 was look at other alternatives. Step number 5, begin to eliminate alternatives. Whenever you have an alternative to a decision, you want to look at the pros and cons, and then you begin to eliminate. Okay, especially in Christian ethics, what are the good versus the bad? Okay, so you can eliminate A because A is not going to be good for you. You can eliminate B, you can eliminate C. This is the same thing when you're working on a research paper. You want to be able to eliminate the things that you're doing. Okay, this is done based on moral principles relevant to the case. So when you're eliminating something, it's based on the moral situations in your situation and the case study and the paper you're writing. Okay, so you might be dealing with a moral situation that might not have nothing to do with what happened to somebody else. Okay, so everybody has a different situation, different way of doing things. At this point, it may be the case that a clear decision can be made due to the fact that all alternatives but one has been ruled out. So the 5th step is saying when you've eliminated all the other alternatives, that one pops up in front of you, that's the one you go with. So this is where really you allow yourself to think and process the things that you're doing. Well, the 6th step of the model is required when the solution to the dilemma is not produced at the 5th stage. There's always going to be a situation after you've tried to eliminate, you still can't make a decision. So it's saying if the virtues, if virtues and values you make the issue clear, then one needs to consider consequences. So what we're getting here is that if after you've reviewed the alternatives and you don't see Then you look at the consequences. Okay. I prefer to go and review my consequences first, but this is trying to say weigh the options. Give me 1 minute. So the text is trying to say look at the options, okay? But I really believe there has to be both ways. The option most beneficial and causing the least amount of harm needs to be given a serious consideration. Whatever option is beneficial and it will cause less harm to everybody is the best one to follow. Compared to taking the option that seems less beneficial may cause more harm, okay, to individuals. Try to avoid that. The sixth step is to bring the process to close. In this stage, the decision has been made and acted upon. It's likely the decision will still be difficult. Okay, so you've made a decision. You've already seen what needs to be done. However, it might seem a bit hard to make the decision, but it's the best option for you. Okay, this situations such as deciding on abortion or medical issues or someone who's in a veggie state at a hospital and the family decides to pull the plug. You know, all these things are kind of ethical decisions that everybody has to make every day. Or you might have situations where somebody, for example, in some religious backgrounds, they don't believe in blood transfusion, and the individual is married to a particular person who doesn't believe in that, but now the only option is to have a blood transfusion. So it causes a big dilemma where the person is saying no, but the person's life is in danger. Okay. So now whoever the decision maker is have to look at the religious versus the life death situation that might occur. Okay. So that's how you make ethical decisions. I really encourage students to read chapter 4 and really go deep into understanding how to make these decisions. Okay, because that chapter can really help you out when you're in whatever decisions you have to make. This is very relevant for me as a pastor, minister, leader, father, husband, preacher, counselor. Every day I have to make ethical decisions. For example, do I have a meeting with somebody in my office alone, or do I have to, follow better practice? Do I purchase certain things for the church, or is it needed? Sometimes I might see something, but it might not be needed at the moment. Do I purchase something on our church card, knowing that we don't have the finances for it? All these things are decisions that I make on a daily basis. Uh, Decisions about officiating weddings. Do I officiate a wedding knowing that he and she are not compatible and see? So those are the type of things that I've had to make in the past when it comes to decisions. Do I allow certain people to serve in ministry knowing they have issues, adultery and stuff like that? So in the past, I've had to mainly decide about this. So every day we have something that we have to do. Now moving on, chapter 5. Uh, and chapter 5, folks, has to do with ethics when it comes to life. The beginning of life, part 1. I think there's going to be 2 chapters on this. This chapter is really going to be talking about life situations, okay? We're going to see you talk about abortion, legal background, biblical data, pro-choice arguments, pro-life, stem cell research. So what we're seeing in chapter 5 is that when it comes to issues such as abortion, do mothers have a right to choose to carry the baby 9 months or not? Or is the abortion issue, is it something that God has given? Do we allow, even though we know the mom might have financial issues, do we tell the mother that she has no right to abort her baby? Okay. And this is one of the biggest thing in the Christian community. This rule has been going on since the 1960s, Roe versus Wade. And basically, There's been pro-choice, okay, pro-life. The two different views, pro-choice, pro-life arguments have been going on for a while. And now we're seeing it circulating again in the courts, in the Supreme Court, especially with our presidents who are active right now. Question is, which one is accurate? And this is an ethical decision that everybody has to make. I'm sure there's been many Christians in the Christian body who have made these decisions in the past, and some regret it, some are thankful for it, but sometimes Christians can be a little bit judgmental when it comes to stuff like this. So basically, when we talk about pro-life, we see the cases originating. Okay, these are particular legal cases that have emerged. And your text will talk about it more. Roe versus Wade. And this case initiated in 1973. And this really set the groundwork for our abortion laws in America. Okay. Then after that, there was Doe versus Bolt in 1973 on the same day as Roe versus Wade. This is another case. Okay. And it expanded what the Roe versus Wade said. Then we had Webster versus Reproductive Health Services of 1989. And this case has to do with stem cells and reproduction, creating life in a laboratory. Okay. Is it right or wrong to create life in laboratories? Okay. The Planned Parenthood versus Casey, 1992. Those of you who are aware of Planned Parenthood has to do with abortion, and they have a lot of abortion clinics around the country where mothers can go in and abort a child if they feel like they can't handle it. Then Gonzalez versus Carhart in 2007. This is a recent case. Okay, so these are the cases that have affected our views when it comes to pro-life. We're going to talk about this more when we meet in class on Monday. So I just want you to read these and study chapters 4 and 5 and start to articulate, what is your view on these different topics? How do you feel about them? Okay. What is your view on abortion? Okay. I remember preaching about abortion one time, and I remember a mother walking out during the sermon, and she went outside, and after the service, I asked her what happened. And she said, Pastor, I couldn't listen to this because
in our
it related to.
Well, today I'm touching base with you with week 3. We finished week 2 last week, and you were supposed to complete a discussion 2, quiz 1 from last week. I noticed some of you still have not done that yet, so I please encourage you to get that in if you have not. Okay. Last week, I encouraged you to read chapters 1 through 5. That really was for the first 2 weeks of the class. And today we're going to be looking at chapter 6